and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and this is the podcast where we talk about professional wrestling for a couple of hours here on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes or on your favorite podcast application, wherever it is that you listen to your everyday podcast. Doesn't necessarily have to be wrestling related. It could be anything. You know, you should have a wide variety of interests and hobbies that you can lock into, not just pro wrestling. Don't be like me. Don't be like me, where it is, you know, the only thing you're into and is completely life consuming. It's not the only thing I'm into. It's not. But for the next couple of hours, it is. For the next couple of hours, it is, and we've got some good stuff lined up too. First of all, subscribe to the channel or give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star rating on Spotify, or leave a like here on the video. Wherever it is, you can show some love. That stuff really does help out, and I appreciate it if you do it. Like right now, that would be tremendous. And on top of that, you can also join the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord. We would love to have you in the Discord. The link is in the description. Come and join us, and we will have mucho good times together. Multiple good times all together at once. At any time of day. Because there's always people in there. So there you go. But as for right now, as for what we're getting into here, look, we've got reviews. I've got the Barb Saski's Refereeing Life 25th year anniversary show, the Crazy Fest, for short. We're going to be reviewing that crazy show. We're going to be reviewing the big CMLL. I know it has a Spanish name, but I can't pronounce it. The Tribute to Two Legends show that happened just this past Friday. So you know, typically it is the second biggest show of the year for CMLL. Big hair versus mask match. No hair involved. Big hair versus mask. No hair, Warren. Big mask versus hair mask. Versus. I promise you, this is not a bit, and I am not editing that out. Big mask versus hair. Big hair. My God. Big mask versus mask match on the show. Thank you. I made it. So we'll be reviewing those two shows. I'm glad, by the way, that I'm reviewing some CMLL. Hopefully I'll have more time to do that. Such a good promotion, great matches. I'm really excited. And we'll be talking contracts. We'll be talking We'll be talking contracts. We'll be talking TNA firings. There's a little something for everyone here on this show. Thank you very much for being here. Let's get to it. This was a little something interesting that fell into our collective laps last week. And what was interesting here is that, okay, let's start from the beginning. First and foremost, it makes absolute sense for Sting to induct Luger into any Hall of Fame that Lex Luger goes into. Like, that's just like you couldn't have a more logical, apropos, absolute fit of an induction than having Lex Luger inducting Sting inducting Lex Luger. The history, etc., just makes too much sense, way too much sense. So there's no surprise here, and I don't think anyone was really shocked at the news, finding out, saying there's a what? Lex Luger wants Sting to induct him, and you know, it's like, well, duh, it's sure, of course, but. But the fact that this was leaked is not an accident. You know, I hope you all realize this. The fact that, you know, WWE made this information readily available for consumption via the wrestling media outlets it's not a mistake. They want to put, very clearly, they want to put Tony Khan, AEW, into a bad spot. They want to put him in a bad spot so that regardless of what he does, he ends up losing. Because if Tony doesn't let Sting go, well, he's going to get backlash. And if Tony lets Sting go, well, he's, going to look like a bit of a goofball. But at the same time, you're like the right thing to do, via Lex Luger would be to let Sting go and do the thing, right? Of course, that would be the right thing to do. But, gentlemen and ladies and everyone else, I would like to inform you that we are currently not in a situation where the right thing to do is happening in professional wrestling in North America. Tony Khan has been, and AEW has been completely eviscerated for the past 2 years. Just completely beaten down in media, by the grifters, by bad faith accounts, through their own volition as well. Like, I'm not saying they're devoid of criticism. No, they've done a lot of things that are deserving of criticism, but I also think a lot of this stuff goes overboard. A lot of the thing is nonsense. And this company here, this World Wrestling Entertainment, I think there was a while where they did indeed not consider AEW to be competition. But I think their tune changed when AEW ended up getting the media deal they got. I think WWE believed AEW would get a media deal, but not as big as the one they got. And that, my friends, even if it was true that back then, a couple of years ago, when Triple H would say we don't see them as competition, maybe that was true. But I believe now that their tune has changed. I think the fiddle is on the other chin, is under the other chin. I think they see AEW as competition now. I really do. Otherwise, they wouldn't be counter-programming pay-per-views with their shitty Saturday Night Main Event things, right? Just like they used to do back in the days with Crockett, with Starrcade, and so on and so forth. They wouldn't suddenly announce a European tour just around the same time that Forbidden Door is being held in the UK, if they didn't think that AEW was competition. Now, a lot of you may brush that off and say, well, whatever, Warren, whatever, Warren. It doesn't really prove anything. Every time they've done that, WWE has run some kind of counter programming, or even when the PLEs air on Saturday nights, Collision always takes a hit. In the ratings, you can always take a look. You can see the trend that most of the time when there is a PLE on Peacock, people will choose to watch WWE over Collision. So it always does end up, hurting them. Didn't they run an NXT show just a couple of months ago, right? They run it in Texas, just like a couple of hours away from the venue that AEW was running. I can't quite remember the details. Wasn't it something like that? And WWE clearly talking to the talent, clearly making arrangements and deals. I had some pretty good chuckles when last week or a couple of days ago, the big news was that Rey Fenix signs with WWE. I'm like, what are we doing? It's like, why are we announcing this? Like like we didn't already know, like we didn't see this coming, like miles and miles away. That was the plan, actually, right? But anyway, the picture I'm trying to paint here, if you haven't figured it out yet, or maybe because my artistic skills stink, is that WWE doesn't play nice. And it stopped playing nice. It stopped playing nice with AEW for a while now. And I don't think Tony should do anything regarding this. This, of course, all depends on the nature of, there's the relationship with Sting. You want to, I don't know what the nature of the relationship is between, Tony Khan and the Stinger. We'll have, we'll see exactly. Clearly this is a good test right here that we're going to see how this goes. I think au contraire, like this would be a very good opportunity to just like stir some shit, be petty. If I were Tony Khan, I would 100% have Sting come out on the Dynamite before WrestleMania, and give him like 15 minutes so that he can cut a promo on Lex Luger's career. Do the induction on Dynamite, and then send the footage to Triple H. Honestly, that's what I'd do. Don't worry, Paul. We'll record the footage. We'll send it to you. And then Paul does whatever the fuck he wants with it. And I know a lot of people are, get bent out of shape when they're talking about, this is such a big honor for Lex and he should be honest. It's the fucking WWE Hall of Fame. Like, who cares? The number of people who are in that Hall of Fame who wouldn't even remotely make it in a real Hall of Fame, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's in there. God bless him. I loved Hillbilly Jim as much as the next guy when I was a kid. But are you trying to tell me that Hillbilly Jim is a Hall of Fame career? Are you going to tell me that Queen Charmel is a Hall of Fame career? Like, it's nonsense. People are so wrapped up in this WWE Hall of Fame when it's for years upon years, it was, what the Hall of Fame was? It was someone sending a text message, an email, or a memo, whatever, to Vince McMahon and say, sir, who do you want in the Hall of Fame this year? And then Vince would jot down some names and send it over. That's how it worked. They're bargaining chips on top of that. Booker T negotiating a Hall of Fame spot for his wife for one of the most unremarkable careers in pro wrestling ever. I'm not going to get bent out of shape for the WWE Hall of Fame, and Lex Luger being inducted. I'm not. So if Tony Khan wants to do that and sort of wants to make a joke out of it, sort of wants to show the world that the WWE Hall of Fame is ultimately just a joke, just a big schmoz that Vince put together to continue manipulating everyone into believing that his vision of pro wrestling is the only vision that is possible. And don't forget, the star inductee, the head of the class this year, is Triple H. For fuck's sake. Okay? You're not going to tell me that this is still not some weird vanity project? No, it's just passed down. I keep telling you all. Triple H learned how to be a booker, a businessman from one man. So if anyone thought that things were suddenly going to be extremely different, he's literally the son-in-law. And he learned everything he knows from Vince. The fuck are we doing here? So, Tony Khan should grow a pair, and he should send Sting out and say, do the induction speech in my ring, and then send the footage over to Hunter. You figure it out, pal. I fucking love it. And yes, it'll make all the right people angry. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. And you know what here, on top of that, you know what? Tony has another opportunity to piss some people off and to get this, get some licks in. All right? AEW Dynamite Spring Breakthrough is going to be happening on Wednesday, April 16, okay? Which is tremendous. We wouldn't be talking about this really if it wasn't for this. Tony Khan tweeting out the following: "Don't miss Wednesday night Dynamite 289. Whoa, why is he mentioning the number? Isn't that peculiar? Why would Tony Khan be bringing out the number, the number edition of the numbered edition of Dynamite? That's so weird. Why do we need the episode number? Anyway, let's continue. Wednesday, April 16 in Boston. AEW Spring Breakthrough. Terrible name, but let's continue. We'll celebrate AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite becoming the longest running primetime weekly pro wrestling program in Turner sports history. Not only did Tony Khan decide to tweet that out as a slight, he had Tony Schiavone on Collision this weekend say those exact same words. This is how they're building the breakthrough show becoming the longest running. This is how they're billing it. It will become the longest running primetime weekly pro wrestling program in Turner sports history. Folks in the chat, people listening later on demand, I'm going to ask you a question. It's a trivia question. Are you ready for some trivia? We're going to have ourselves a good time. We're going to pretend we're at your favorite trivia bar, and now I'm going to ask you a trivia question. Are you ready for this? Here we go. Up until this point, what is the longest running primetime weekly pro wrestling program in Turner sports history? Up until this, as of today, March 24, 2025. Folks, what is the longest running primetime weekly pro wrestling program in Turner sports history? You guessed it, Monday Nitro. Now, let's continue with the trivia. Who is the person who created WCW Monday Nitro and brought it to such heights of success where they defeated WWF in the ratings for 83 straight weeks? Who is the individual who did that? Let me know, chat. Let me know, people at home playing along. You guessed it. No, not El Dandy. Eric Bischoff. We are on the cusp of celebrating the fact that AEW has outlived WCW Monday Nitro, the brainchild, the baby of one Eric Bischoff, who has spent the last 3 to 4 years of his adult fucking life making shit up about Dynamite and pandering to a crowd of ignoramuses as he just spread lies through his teeth because probably Tony Khan didn't want to give him a job. Now, Tony clearly wants to rub this in Eric's face. If this is how we're deciding to go along with it, if this is how it's going to be billed as the longest running primetime weekly pro wrestling program in Turner sports history, I believe that this is a very subtle way for Tony Khan to sort of give the old chin flip to Eric Bischoff. But Tony, I don't know you're listening. You never know who's listening. Look, I have, at the very least, someone can clip this and send it to Tony. I know someone will. Don't be subtle about it, Tony. There's no reason to be subtle. If I were Tony Khan, not only would I be asking Sting to cut a promo on Lex Luger's career on Dynamite, but I would invite publicly Eric Bischoff to join him for episode 289 and celebrate AEW Dynamite becoming the longest running primetime weekly pro wrestling program in Turner sports history. I'd do it. Out there, tweet about it. I'd have a little media call before the event, like a few days before, and I'd get on the call, hyping this up, and I'd say, hey, you know what, Eric, I want to invite you to come celebrate this momentous occasion. You're a part of wrestling history. You want to be a part of the new generation. You want to usher it in. Why don't you come and join us? We'll have a nice luxury skybox for you. All the pretzels you can eat, Eric. Oh, and I know you're a little strapped for cash, Eric. Don't worry, all expenses, it's on me, Eric. You can bring your lovely wife, and you can come hang out. You can have a taste of the good life. You remember that? You remember when you used to hang out in luxury boxes, Eric? You can come do that. That's what I'd do if I were Tony Khan. I would 100% do that. I'd say, fuck them kids. It doesn't, and let it get Bully Ray upset on Busted Open Radio. I couldn't give a shit. This is the time for the victory lap. Yeah, this is the time for the victory lap. This is, for the past 3 years, all of these assholes have been promoting the fact that AEW would not make it through the year, that it was going to go under, that it was mismanaged, that it was going to die, that Tony Khan was awful, that the wrestling sucked. And nonetheless, it's going to outlast the one promotion that was thrown into the limelight, that was established as being the gold standard. If you ever wanted to defeat WWE or whatever stupid, asinine vision that they had to defeat WWE, and these same people from back then can't let go of the past, can't let go of their past successes. Otherwise, if they let go of the past successes, they don't have any other successes to show. They got nothing else. What does Eric Bischoff have to show other than the fucking 83 weeks? That's his brand. It's not only his brand, folks. It's his identity. That's all he's got. What does Bubba Ray Dudley have outside of a fucking TLC match? That's all he's got. They can't let go of the past. They have to hang on to the past. So they bring the past into the present. And it's like the only way AEW is going to survive is if they beat WWE. But no, not in a modern contemporary setting where the game has completely changed and is utterly different from what it used to be back in 1996, when the entire way of making money in the wrestling business has changed. It's not the same thing at all. Eric, and he pretends, he makes believe that he has it all understood, but he doesn't. He doesn't. Because all he's got is the past. That's all he's got to clasp onto. So why doesn't he come as a ghost from the past onto Dynamite number 289, the spring breakthrough, and usher in the longest running primetime weekly pro wrestling program in Turner sports history? Send out the invitation. Tony, get it out there. Take your victory lap. Show WWE that you're not gonna bend the knee, that you're not gonna fuck around with them. They fuck with you, you fuck with them. Have Sting cut the promo on Lex Luger. Then send the footage to Triple H so we can use it on his show. That's how it should go. Take your wins. You got some W's. Use them. Make them happen. Tell me I'm wrong. let's cover some big news that dropped today in the world of total nonstop chaos, also known as TNA Wrestling. Major changes within TNA today, new head of creative, shocking departures, and more, says Mike Johnson over at pwinsider.com. There have been a number of exits from Anthem and TNA Wrestling today, PW Insider can confirm. TNA President Carlos Silva issued a memo to Anthem staff today announcing the departure of 8 from the company. One of the most shocking departures was Ariel Ariel Schnerer, who was executive producer of TNA and effectively head of creative. Schnerer had been with Anthem, TNA, and the Fight Network for many years. With his departure, Hunter Delirious Johnson, that's right, you heard that, Hunter Johnston, aka Delirious, will now head creative. Tommy Dreamer remains on the creative team as well. Tied for the most shocking is the departure of TNA Hall of Famer Gail Kim, who worked behind the scenes in talent relations and producing and was a legitimate legend for the promotion. With her exit, Tommy Dreamer will now be heading the talent relations end of the company. Kim's run with the company dates back to 2005, been basically 20 years with the company. Initially as a performer, and she was one of the women who forged the Knockouts division before her current role. She was very much loved and respected internally by the talents. Dreamer and Johnston will report directly to Silva. Rob Klingman, who was Chief Revenue Officer, has also departed. He was named CRO in June 2024. Prior to joining Anthem Sports Group, Klingman has served as Vice President of Marketing Operations and Sales over at G Fuel. I guess he knows Keemstar. And also worked at WWE as well as their Vice President of Global Digital and Integrated Sponsorship Sales. That's a hell of a vice presidential title, I'll tell you what. Michael Shuchenko will be exiting the digital department on April 30, Silva announced. He started with the company in March 2023. It was also announced that Karen Klevet, product owner, worked on TNA Plus, Romy Glazer in marketing, and Sebastian Destrani on the live events end will be leaving the company. Raphael Morphy, who had been consulting and working to build the company's live business, was also announced to be moving on. Morphy had been involved in the company's great success of late, including the big houses in El Paso. Silva also announced the company will welcome a new senior vice president of digital, David Clevinger, next month. Clevinger worked with the NFL, NBC Universal, UFC, the NBA, and more. A new senior vice president of sales, Nicole Rasheen, probably Rasheen, right? Started with the company this month. She previously worked for World Team Tennis. So there you go. That's the long of it. Because there's a lot of people departing here. I think there were indeed quite a couple of surprises, and I think some people, I think some people really were. I think some people were blindsided by these firings. I don't think these were all necessarily expected cuts. Interesting, like really quickly. I don't know if the name Raphael Morphy rings a bell, but he was just recently in TNA, not in TNA, in AEW, right? He was the live events dude, and he left like in June last year, something like last summer or something, or early. When did I forget when he left? But like he not even last summer. He left AEW, I think, over the fall. Like he really hasn't been there long. He gets the big El Paso shows, and then it's like, okay, we don't need you anymore. If he was acting as a consultant, well, he's not exactly he's not an employee, he's not actual staff, so That's fine, you know. Yeah, and Ariel Schneer. It's funny, right? I read this name all the time, and then I'm like, I never really think about how I'm pronouncing it. Yeah, does that happen? Like, it has to happen to you guys too, right? Where you're like, there's a name, you see it all the time, but you never think about how to pronounce it. Weird, right? Schneerer. That's all there is to it. Ariel Schneerer. Yeah, like he was head of creative. He was the top guy, and he has been there for a while. You know, before we, like, obviously we're going to talk about the big one, at least I think from the wrestling fans' point of view. You know, I don't have many thoughts on, you know, Michael Shuchenko and his departure, or, you know, Karen Clevitt. Like you know, I don't have much to offer on that front. But you know, there's a lot of people who are thinking to themselves, well, this is probably TNA preparing for a sale, right? It is interesting that all of these people are being fired, and, you know, but at the same time, this is still part of the Anthem restructuring that started last year and is still ongoing. Like they were, you know, they released a bunch of people about a month ago, and they're still and they're doing it again. And this is essentially just like, and it's sad, but this is how the corporate world works, is that eventually you run down the line. It becomes a question of you know, numbers in spreadsheets, and you make these decisions based on that, and you put into position people who are loyal to you, people who are on your side. You know, there's a lot of people here who were around the old regime with Scott D'Amore, which was, you know, by all reports, was a little contentious with Anthem brass. So we're getting rid of the people who were still around, who may still be very pro Scott and may challenge us a little bit. They don't want any more of that. That's what a restructuring is. And this is all part of these same operations. I don't think, okay, and I'm not sitting around in the meetings, I can't tell you, okay? But if you're asking me what I think, I don't think that TNA is gearing for a sale. Because the question then that I ask to anyone who says that, it's like, to whom? Who is TNA going to sell to? And naturally, most of the time, everyone sort of goes WWE, because WWE is already in a relationship with them and they're setting up for a sale and whatnot. And then again, I ask, why would WWE buy TNA? Why would they want to purchase another wrestling company when they are currently the biggest organization in the world, the biggest wrestling organization in the world, and they already run like 3 different brands and a bunch of other projects on the side? They've got the Evolve thing, they've got the ID thing, you know, they've got their performance centers and all that. Why? What is the benefit of picking up another brand and adding more bodies to the roster, more salaries? There's no point to it, really. Like it just. Now, if TNA were on national television, pulling in incredible ratings, then you're like, oh, okay, I see what they want to do. They either want to make that for themselves or they want to buy out the competition, which is, you know, WWE's MO for many, many, many years. Maybe that's what they want to do. But there's no reason. They're on fucking Access TV. They're not even a blip most weeks on rankings as far as ratings go. They have no market share. There's no reason. It doesn't make sense. I don't see why they're going to do that. There's no there's no scenario to me that makes sense where WWE decides to pick them up, especially since the relationship that they have right now with TNA. Like if you were to argue and say, well, it's, they can integrate the, TNA into the talent pipeline. TNA is already integrated in the talent pipeline. And they're doing all sorts of stuff with TNA. They're using TNA as another branch of developmental, trying people out, sending people over, doing talent exchanges, sending Cora Jade over there week after week so that she can hopefully get better. And they're all doing this, and it doesn't cost them a dime. Like they already have all the benefits of having another brand, but it's not costing them, WWE, a dime to maintain, to hold, to book, to, the salaries, the venues, the deals. It doesn't make sense. Like even they don't have to purchase TNA. The relationship they have with TNA right now is exactly what it would be if they own TNA, except right now TNA is footing all the costs. So win for WWE. Like I don't see who would want to pick this up. Tony Khan? Because I've heard that. Like that's wild as hell. No. Like Tony is absolute. If AEW was in a stronger spot than it is right now, I could see it. But there's no, look, he owns a second brand right now and he can't do shit with it. All he can do with it is put it behind a fucking paywall. That's all he can do with it. And it's not working out very well, is it? We're not going to go throw on another brand here unless there's some investor that we're not seeing coming in from out of the blue, some guy or gal with a lot of money, not unlike a Panda Energy, coming in out of nowhere, swooping this up. And don't forget one thing. Here's another thing that makes me that goes against the concept of the sale. It's Anthem owns Access. TNA is on Access. This is all integrated programming. We don't get Access up here in Canada, but I've seen like the programming block. They don't have a lot of original programming on Access. It's it's pretty shitty overall. But with TNA, they at least have integrated within the company, this essential corporate synergy stuff. They're able to produce their own original content for their own network. So of course, that's not as expensive for them. They can finagle everything they need to do to sort of diffuse costs and whatnot. That's how it goes. So that's another reason why, I don't understand. I don't see how Anthem would be in a position to be like, yeah, let's divest ourselves of TNA. I don't understand, and especially not WWE. But of course, like I said, the big one that we all want to talk about is Gail Kim. I think to call this a shocker is appropriate. I think that's exactly the right term. This is someone who is deeply ingrained in the DNA of TNA. Wink, wink. Look, we saw it in the article. She was basically there for 20 years. She's the last of a group of people who were there in the formative years, the difficult years. It's not an easy. It's not of course it's not. It can't be easy for her, but it's a wild thing to imagine, like TNA wrestling in 2025 and Gail Kim not being a part of it. People say, like the article says here, she was very much loved and respected internally by talent. We need to really underscore how much Gail Kim was a fixture backstage as a producer, working in talent relations, as was mentioned. She was someone who never backed down from a fight. She always stuck up for talent. She was well respected for that because she always spoke her mind, much to her detriment. Like I said earlier, this is a restructuring. They're taking people out and putting in folks who would toe the line, right? It's a loyalty test, right? It's a loyalty check. Who's loyal to the new regime? Well, they get shoved in. That's how it goes. And again, like it's not something I necessarily am comfortable with, that I agree with, that whatever. And that's just how it happens. So, maybe, the reputation that she has is, that she would, she'd call people out on their shit. She would never be afraid of doing it. Maybe the new regime is like, well, we don't want someone too defiant on our side. And that's possible. I'm not saying it's a right thing. Au contraire, sometimes you need the dissident voices. Sometimes you need someone to rattle the chain a little bit, to rattle the cage a little bit, to make sure that everyone sort of realizes that maybe all of these ideas are a little complacent, aren't going well. But, it's been emphasized, and I think there's been some reactions on Twitter that a lot of people are upset that she's gone. She's been described to me as a force in nature in the industry. It's been a bit of a surprise. And the article credits her with the formation of the Knockouts division, which she can absolutely take accountability for. She was absolutely a building block, right? Of course, her departure from WWE was unceremonious, to say the least. There's self-elimination from Battle Royal, and the way she was treated, and so on and so forth. Like I said, a little unceremonious. That's putting it mildly. In her regard, in Gail Kim's regard, I think they're going to be losing a significant part of the backstage dynamic and energy. And of course, the question everyone has is, well, what's next for Gail Kim? Now, I don't want to come here and be the guy who says, oh, AEW should hire her, right? Because, kind of like, DJ Convoy was mentioning in the Discord a little earlier today. AEW has to. Well, we can't always see AEW as some kind of safety net, and I think that was a very good analogy. Like, the AEW is not wrestling safety net, and we have to sort of backtrack on that and say, well, when someone that is well liked or whatever in the wrestling industry loses their job, whether from wherever, it doesn't fall upon All Elite Wrestling to, swooping them up like Superman kind of thing. Like we saw the same thing with Scott D'Amore, right? We saw the same thing with Scott D'Amore when he was gone from TNA, and people were like, oh, Tony Khan should hire Scott D'Amore, and so on and so forth. But, thankfully, that didn't happen. I will say that there might be an exception in the case of Gail Kim. In the case of Gail Kim, I would not be seeing this as just, well, come and rescue this person who lost their job. I think Gail Kim is someone who has real value to a wrestling promotion. I think she, well, first and foremost, this is what I do. Before any talk about any backstage roles, I try to get her into the company for a match against Mercedes Moné. Would we be confident in chalking that up onto the dream match board, right? Because I know dream match, the terminology of dream matches has been a little exhausted. It's been a little, it hasn't been great, right? Should we do that? That'd be the first thing I'd do. If I'm Tony Khan, I give her a call. I say, Gail, I got a match for you. And I think that would pique the interest. And that, if Gail Kim wanted to, I think if Gail Kim wanted to call it her retirement match, I think that would be fine too, even though she's already had it apparently. Well, no, she's had it. I was there. But, you know, it's like, that's something that Mercedes would dig. You know, Mercedes doing interviews saying how, you know, she's rekindled her love of pro wrestling. You know, AEW, he'll bring that back and whatnot. Well, there you go. Like, that's a match that I'm sure she'd be excited to get. You know, Gail Kim, first time in, you know, so many years, dusting herself off, coming after the you know, the best women's wrestler in North America. Be fine with that. That would be the first thing I'd do. And the second thing is I would offer Kim a spot backstage to work with the women, to be like the talent, to be the producer and the talent relations person, the point person with the women's division. I'd tell her the women's division is yours to make sure that everything is cool with. It's your environment. I'm not saying book it, okay? Because she was not a booker. Gail Kim was not involved in creative. She wasn't a booker. She was a producer. She worked with talent. She was very good at what she did. You want to replicate that. Now, the thing is that if you do that, you know Gail Kim is going to go to bat for all these women, and she's going to swing hard, swing fast, and she's probably going to ruffle some feathers. And that's fine. But Tony Khan has to want that. Because if he's truly serious about his women's division, about upping the quality, about giving it more shine, maybe even more matches on a weekly basis, you know, if he's serious about that, then you hand the reins over to Gail Kim, someone who would absolutely 100% know how to manage that locker room. She would get people in line. She wouldn't let the clouds, the dark clouds in the locker room, extend their shadows over everyone there. She'd get things in order. She's respected, well liked, super respected. No one would think about, oh, who is this person? Where is she coming from? What the hell is this? It's Gail Kim. But Tony Khan has to be serious about this. And how serious is he regarding the women's division? Look, if there was ever a statement he could make to quell all of the frustrations that a lot of fans have in regards to how Tony handles the women's division and so on and so forth, this would be a tremendous statement. It would be very clear of how serious he would be in that regard. But we don't know how serious he is. And I don't know if he's serious to the point where he would hire someone who would very likely stand up to him, who would challenge his ideas, who would push back on things. That's her MO. That's what she does. Can he handle it? Does he want to handle that? Look, we're all speculating at this point, right? It's a very much a time will tell type of situation. But I think there is nothing but advantages for AEW to hire Gail Kim. And like I said, I don't think this is a safety net type of situation where it's like, AEW has to swoop in to save the day. I don't think it's one of those. I think Gail Kim legitimately has something to offer. I think she's a special person in pro wrestling. She has the know-how, she has the expertise, she has the experience on top of that to manage this type of situation. From what I understand, she could also quit. Just say, okay, I'm done with wrestling, and she doesn't need. She's not for want of money, is what I'm trying to say. Like she's not necessarily. She doesn't need this for a living, but she won't come without knowing that she gets to, this is her part of the show, and she probably makes it very clear that she comes into and she wants to change things. And AEW has to be ready for that. Tony Khan has to be ready for that. Maybe this is the person, maybe all they were lacking was someone at the head to really make this something, right? It's not as if, maybe this is all they're missing. Maybe this is the key that that's missing for AEW's women's division to explode. But I don't know. My gut tells me that Tony Khan doesn't really see the women's division as that much of a priority. And I'm not sure he's willing to add more matches and have to deal with concessions that he would make to Gail Kim to push the division forward, to make it something different, to give it more airtime, to give it more space to grow. I don't know. I don't know if he has that. I don't know if he cares enough. Maybe we'll see. But I think there is no argument though that it's a huge loss for TNA. A very bizarre firing, and que sera, I guess. There's a certain amount of silliness when people get upset about these types of spots, and it's just because, look, WWE ended up, asepticizing wrestling to the point where it is today, where not even wrestling fans today can't handle violence, where they prefer to be in on the joke, they prefer to be in on the story than to be just entertained and suspend their disbelief and allow wrestlers to tell them a story where they will believe that they are indeed having a fight. And I'm going to tell you, this thing from Jade Cargill this week, let me tell you, this shit offends me more than anyone blading or whatever, getting impaled. This really doesn't, this offends me so much more. You all seen this clip yet? Check this out. Watch this.
Are you feeling ready for taking her on, being your first opponent since coming back from the attack?
Kathy, how do I feel? You was right there. You should see exactly how I feel.
Are you feeling ready?
Just some prime, incredible acting. Like just this is some Tommy Wiseau level acting here. Kathy, what's the wait a minute, shit. What's the line that Wiseau does in the movie? Kathy, you're tearing me apart. Like it's the same level. It's the same level of acting.
Ready for taking her on.
It's legitimately the same level.
Being your first opponent since coming back from the attack.
Kathy, how do I feel? You was right there. You should see exactly how I feel.
Oh, God. You're tearing me apart, Kathy. Folks, we have to have a very serious conversation about Jade Cargill, okay? Are you ready for this? I believe that Jade Cargill was better off in AEW. What has Jade done in WWE that has set the world on fire? Okay. Like she's another person on the roster. They had her coming out of limousines. They put her in a tag team to cover for her because they know she doesn't have the work. She gets into fights with legitimate workers, legitimately good workers backstage, and then has the gall to tell them that they need to go and learn how to work. And they give her the stick, and this is what she does. Kathy, how do I feel? You're tearing me apart, Lisa. And they essentially are presenting her, or were presenting her, the same way that AEW was, right? Exactly the same type of entrance. I remember this clearly when she debuted. Same type of entrance, a sound alike to her AEW theme. Very, very close. And you're like, I'm looking at this. Like it's basically the same presentation. Now, I'm not going to retcon anything. I was absolutely one of these people who was saying, if there is one spot that will be able to take Jade and make her into the superstar that AEW cannot, because AEW doesn't have the know-how that a 50-plus-year-old company like WWE has, it's WWE. That's the spot. But I for one, am kind of floored that she's been with this company, what, 3 years at this point? 2 years? Since 2024. She started, her debut was in January. This was her first match. She debuted in 2023 for the company, right? She debuted in 2023. Her last match was in September. Yeah, no, she showed up in WWE in 2023. Exactly. She was hired and sent for the PC for like 6 months. So she's been around there for a while, and they still haven't figured out how to put her over, how to get her to work with the crowd. They still haven't figured it out. And part of it is because it's Jade. What is the one thing that I have been constant in talking about Jade Cargill? With her level of talent, with what she brings to the table, not talking about her look, not talking about the presentation. I'm talking about her work, both character, promos, and in-ring. At 32 years old, this is a what you see is what you get situation. And you can go back and check the tape. It's a through line. I underscored that. So even I was like, they're going to send her to WWE, but no one should be expecting her to suddenly turn into Akira Hokuto when she shows up there, because that she will never be more than what she is. She didn't improve in her time in AEW, and she's not improving here. And she's not improving in the one spot, the one fucking spot that matters the most to WWE fans. And it's the microphone on the stick. Her promos are still horrible. Now back to my original point, where I'm like, I think Tony had it right. I think think of how AEW was pushing or not even. Okay, well I sort of blew my spot here because I wanted to say, look at how they were handling Jade Cargill over in AEW. And then I wanted to lead in with, well, they pushed her as this invincible superstar, like this invincible beast with the winning streak and the title, essentially the title that that was basically designed for her. From the moment they trotted it out, I was like, that's for Jade. That is 100% for Jade. And then next thing you know, she's they give her managers, they give her some followers, a little unit, some people to back her up. They do the thing with the baddies. She was always treated like a star, like a true to form star in that company. The bell would ring. Matches were miserable. Don't get me wrong. I am not sitting here trying to retcon how the Jade Cargill experience when it comes to the bell to bell action. That would be very irrational and on my part. That would be awful. That would be very irresponsible on my part if I were to sit here and tell you that Jade Cargill, bell to bell was great in AEW. She wasn't. But they kept the matches short, and they did everything in their power to work to her strengths. When they gave her promo time, what did they do? Did they have her do community theater time like they did just here? Kathy. No. They'd have her say, cut the shit, Tony. And she'd talk some smack, and that'd be it. She'd hit the bricks. That's it. That's all. That's That's what they do with her. So I'm legitimately at a point in my adult life, where I sincerely believe that she was better off in AEW. And I am stunned by that statement. But WWE has not proved the opposite. She is, or at the very least, she is exactly what anyone with a fucking pair of eyeballs could see. I was like, she's going to go there and she's going to be Jade, and we'll see what kind of ceiling that she can unlock for herself, because WWE, there's a lot of stuff that WWE can put forward that people will be okay with if you were to that the WWE fans are able to gloss over if it's not exactly going great in one field. Maybe it's like over here, like Jey Uso, right? Like Jey Uso has the entrance. He's got the big smiling yeet stuff, and he does the thing with the kids and everything's great. So they'll forgive him when they'll make excuses for the in-ring because he's got the great entrance, But Jade doesn't have anything of that. And Jade doesn't, doubt it if she has the potential for that. Like, at what point is this going to unlock? I sincerely believe this is her ceiling. Like, as far as her talent goes, this is absolutely 100% her ceiling. I don't think it's going to go any higher than this. Because look, if pairing her off with Bianca Belair, basically having Bianca carry her for months, trying to make sure that she can get over with the audience without getting exposed too much, doesn't help. I don't know what to do. I wouldn't know what to do outside of sending her back. She'd benefit in working in NXT right now. With all the talent, with all the well-traveled talent that exists in NXT right now, she would even benefit going there. Because let's not kid ourselves, the days of NXT being developmental are once again over. Now it's a regular third brand. Do we all agree with this? It's a regular third brand now. Just warming people up for back when Triple H was in charge. We're back to that. Because look, Jordan Grace, Stephanie Vicaire, Julia, Ethan Page, Sean Spears, Javon Evans. Who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting other. Ricky Starks, Ricky Saints. These are not newbies anymore. We're not dealing with NIL kids. I'm not saying these are tremendous wrestlers. I'm saying these are well-versed professional wrestlers, right? We're not my point is that NXT is no longer a basin full of NIL kids and greener than grass trainees. That's what Evolve is going to be. That is clearly what Evolve is now. That's what it is. But legitimately, that's what the shows have evolved into. So my point now is that Jade, when she came in, would have not benefited at all from working with, whoever the fuck, the NIL kids that are mucking around there, who were on Level Up. Like, she wouldn't benefit at all from working with those people, but working with, being in a division where you've got Jordan Grace and Stephanie Vicaire. Well, of course, these are well-traveled, experienced professional wrestlers who would be able to pass on a thing or two. All this talk when she was in AEW about, she's training with Danielson and so on and so forth. Maybe Danielson a couple of times was like, yeah, this is how you do a drop toe hold. I don't know, but I can't. I can't buy that. Or if she was indeed training with Danielson, well, then she's an absolute lost cause. If you can't pick up anything from Bryan Danielson, I don't know what to tell you. Like I think you might just be a glob of moss. Why don't we take a few minutes here to go back and talk about Barb Saski Refereeing Life 25th Anniversary Crazy Fest, or better known as quite simply Crazy Fest, a show that occurred on March 10, 2025 in Kurkan Hall in Tokyo, Japan. It's been a few days since. It's been about 15 days since the show's taken place. Warren, you're a little late to the party. Well, I got around to it during the week that I decided to just take a step back and and break away. I've been meaning to do a review, but better late than never. It's never too late to get into a good little wrestling show. And this is what I think this was. This was a fun wrestling show that was put together by Barb Saski, well-known, rather famous, rather legendary. I guess should we trot out the legendary? Sure, why not? Legendary referee there over in Japan. And the show that he put together here was essentially, a sort of a mishmash of all sorts of different types of wrestling, to give you a buffet of stuff that you should end up enjoying. There's stuff here, I think, on this show for everyone, just as there's things that might absolutely turn you off, particularly the top two matches of the show, which are flat out death matches, but maybe, and maybe you're not into that. Maybe you're into some comedy wrestling. There's that here that happens. Absolutely. Maybe you just want to see some straight up Joshi. Well, there you go. There's a little bit of everything here. Of course, it's always a little under the banner, considering the branding of the show and how it was put together. You're expecting matches that have exhibit excessive violence. So if it's that kind of thing that really turns you off, well, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe don't watch it. But but I'd even go as far as to say that, even if you don't like deathmatch wrestling, I think that I think that this is a good show nonetheless. I think this is something that you can absolutely get into. Look, the main event, we're going to get to it, but obviously, because it's on the show and we're reviewing it, the main event was absolutely spectacularly bloody and brutal and the most deathmatchy match you could think of. But even I, myself, who is not necessarily a guy who chases down deathmatch wrestling, I don't have any issues with it, really, but I don't actively seek it out. You have to combine a certain amount of good qualities. You have to put together a significant amount of tasty ingredients in this roast for me to watch, for me to partake, to taste it, to enjoy it. Even I was thoroughly entertained and ended up watching one of my favorite matches of the month, without a question about it. There's some spoilers for you, in case you were wondering where I stood on that. But again, I can't stress enough that I understand that that deathmatch wrestling is absolutely not everyone's cup of tea. And I don't blame anyone who'll be like, Warren, I'm not going to watch this. And that's absolutely fine. But again, as someone who doesn't consume it on the reg, I sat down, I watched the show, I thoroughly enjoyed it, thought the main event was excellent. We'll get into the reasons why, but I feel like I can safely say, look, if you want a truly good professional wrestling death match, this is the one for you. This is what you should. This is the one you should lay your eyes on and enjoy, because it was extremely good, extremely good. And I wasn't alone in, thinking this was extremely good. There were over 1,600 people in Korakuen for this, which is tremendous. There's a lot of pro wrestling shows right now heading into Korakuen that are filling up the hall, which is tremendous. Korakuen is usually, it's the smart crowd who goes there, right? It's a lot of hardcore wrestling fans who go there, but this is not to say that they pack out the venue with every show that goes there. However, we have seen recently, New Japan have some good nights there. We saw Stardom recently have one of its best nights ever in Korakuen, if not the best. We've had Noah, who got close to, very, very, very close to filling out the arena at 1,550 people in there. So it's like, there's a good uptick in attendance in Korakuen for a lot of promotions, which I would like to think that is a good sign that not only the business is improving in Japan, but more importantly, the promotions are putting on shows and putting together events, pushing people, creating matchups that are captivating the smart fans who then go to Korakuen to fill it out. And then normally these are typically trends that you'll be able to follow in other venues as well. So the fact that this show, essentially an independent show, not under the New Japan banner, not under any banner, not even under the Freedoms banner, nothing, essentially filled out to max capacity Korakuen Hall. I think I heard, I had someone tell me that they even had the balconies open at the top and they had people standing around. So, if that is indeed the case, this was a tremendously successful show, and I think there was a lot of reasons for that. And I would dare say that the people who were here on location for the show, who showed up, did not leave disappointed in any way, shape, or form. This was a really fun show. I enjoyed this show. I didn't enjoy everything on the show, but I enjoyed most of the show, and I enjoyed it where it mattered, which was in the business end of the show, which you could argue were the last two matches, and we're going to start by talking about those. Start by talking about the main event specifically, which is the fluorescent light and glass board extreme three-way death match, could be a dance, a dance of death as well. Like, it could be that too, but it wasn't. Where Jun Kasai got the best of his opponents, Masashi Takeda and El Desperado. So, again, I am not a big deathmatch guy. And, when I think of death matches, there's kind of a, this is what I look for in a death match is good professional wrestlers. And that might sound a little weird, but I very much adhere to, the way Joe Lanza approaches deathmatch wrestling. If you have in this type of environment, in a death match, if you are able to put in that environment 3, 2, 3, whatever, any number of guys, let's say 3 in this case, who outside of deathmatch wrestling are actually good wrestlers, then you have a recipe here for a truly entertaining, well put together, smartly put together match that will use all the deathmatch tropes, but will not steer away from the fact that this is a pro wrestling match, and the pro wrestling will still have a level of significance. And that is important. There's nothing worse to me than having guys or gals, throwing shit at each other, dropping each other on shit, and then that's pretty much it, right? I do often think that, the deathmatch a lot of death matches, especially in the United States, is just like throwaway excuses for people to get some gore, for people who aren't necessarily super talented pro wrestlers to get in a ring and do wrestling things, but with it under this umbrella and get away with it, so to speak. In this case, the case of this main event, we got all the blood and all the light tubes you could have wanted. You got all of the gallons felt like of blood pouring all over the place. But in its structure and the way it was delivered, it ended up being like just a fantastic match that told a terrific story, that built to some great drama, and that I couldn't help but get invested in. I thoroughly enjoyed this match. And look, needless to say, it all started off very quickly when Takeda tries to throw El Desperado into one of the glass panes. They brought in 2 glass panes on top of the tubes and everything, right? Because they had the tubes all around the ring, and they had glass panes set up on either corner. And Takeda tries to throw El Desperado into one of the panes, and it doesn't shatter. So they do it another time. Takeda tries to throw Desperado through it, and it still doesn't shatter. So then Sakai comes in, and he and Takeda both double team suplex Desperado through the pane, and it finally shatters. And no, in case you're wondering, it was not sugar glass. Cry me a river. Takeda has scissors that he uses to slice his own head. Like, we're establishing early on that these guys are just out to maim each other, right? And that's what they do quite a bit. Takeda eventually early, not necessarily early, but not too late in the match, he completely tears off El Desperado's mask, which isn't the first time that we've seen this. And in most of these death matches that Despe likes to do, his mask is always just like lost in the shuffle. So there's a degree to Desperado losing his mask means he's just getting, a crimson mask to replace it. Oh, see? Wow. That gave me shivers. So Takeda tears off Desperado's mask and uses his scissors on top of that to sort of slice the forehead. And finally, we get a good Tower of Doom spot by Jun Kasai, who drops the Fools through a glass pane, the second glass pane, I should say. And Desperado, man, at this point, he's just bleeding. And he is high level Muda scale. He might even be breaking the Muda scale with how much blood is pouring out of the man. And it is fascinating. Like it truly is like carry level. Like, I don't even think I think we've broken through the Muda scale and we are now into the carry scale. It is astounding. And look, they've been going at each other so much with light tubes already. The glass panes. The ring is covered in glass. Like, there's not an inch of the ring that doesn't have a little snowy covering of just prickly little shards of glass. Desperado topes onto light tubes, like directly into them, that are held by Sakai and Takeda. Honestly, Desperado in this match was just absolutely bonkers. Like, I know he loves this shit. I know he enjoys the occasional death match, right? I know he does. But Jesus Christ, like, he was so much into this. It was crazy. We get a barbed wire board out, onto which Takeda and Desperado Spanish fly onto the board, and then we get boards with forks on them, and Takeda Urinagi's El Desperado onto the forks. I'm telling you, Desperado did this match and was like, dudes, I want to take everything. I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what you guys have planned, but I'm taking everything in this match. He even takes the skewers. We get the skewers at some point, and he's the one who gets them shoved into his skull. So at this point, here's the thing. At this point, the lads are out of weapons. There's a few light tubes left, sure, okay, but like everything that was around the ring expended, it's gone, you know, it's done. The glass panes are done, the skewers are done, the board of forks is done, the barbed wire board, did I say the bar? Well, I will say it again. The barbed wire board is done. We've been through everything. And this is what I really like. This is what really put this over for me. Outside of the insane effort that these guys were putting in, the drama that they were building to. From this point on, these guys start throwing moves on each other. Then, because they're like, look, they realize that they've tried to end each other with all of the actually violent weapons, all of the shit that can draw blood. Now they switch over to, okay, none of this worked. We're all still alive and you know, fighting here. So the only way to beat you guys, essentially, is to use wrestling moves. And that's what they start doing. They start dropping each other with all sorts of moves. Don't forget, onto this nice cushy glass that is all throughout the ring. And they're kicking out, the other guy's breaking up the pin, you know, and it gets really, really dramatic, and the crowd is more and more into it, and I am more and more into it. It's just bonkers. And yes, the guys are torn up, you know, as you would expect, their backs and whatnot, but none even close to how mangled El Desperado looks. He was 100% the MVP of this match. And this stretch is just absolutely phenomenal. They slug it out at each other. They're covered in blood. Their backs are full of glass. You know, they've got, it's stuck to them. It's either embedded in their flesh, or it's stuck to them because they're covered in blood and sweat, and the other dude's is blood and sweat. You know, Kasai does a pinche loco at around this part. It looked absolutely sick. But that's how he ends the match, if I'm not mistaken. He lands a pinche loco on El Desperado to get the win. And don't forget, El Desperado is the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. Now, this is the kind of shit that El Desperado comes in and he's like, nah, I'm taking, you know, he's good pals with Sakai. They're both sickos. So he's like, nah, I'm fine with taking the pin. I'm fine with it. But the thing is that Jun Sakai just pinned an IWGP champion. So technically he should be up for a title shot. So, you know, I'm watching that and like, wait, what? Like, I wish, like, when you say 100% sure, I would have bet the house on Takeda taking the pin, legitimately. Thank God I didn't. See, this is why I don't gamble. I've told y'all multiple times, I'm not a gambler. Then this is why. Because I would have went all in on this shit and I would have lost it all. It's tremendous. I mean, it makes sense after once it happens, you're like, well, okay, of course, El Desperado. But nonetheless, now does this mean Jun Sakai is gonna have a championship title challenge? Probably not. Probably not, right? Like, I don't. How much? What does he build at for his weight? Well, he could. He's built at 88 kilos, 194 pounds. So he is a junior heavyweight. Look, I don't know what's going to happen next. Probably not. It's all just going to be probably forgotten or whatnot. But it's not as if New Japan wasn't there and didn't approve of this, right? They had, Hiromu Takahashi's on this show. They had Milano Collection AT on commentary. Like, it's not as if this was completely unsanctioned. And, you have the Stardom girls who are there as well, which are under New Japan, which is under New Japan. No, so, This was probably all approved through the proper channels and whatnot. I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing. This is not trash bag nonsense deathmatch bullshit that you will often see. Like I said, and particularly on the American indies, this was brutal. Don't get me wrong; it's brutal, it's violent, it's visceral, but there was a compelling story and some great wrestling drama happening in this match that you can't just like poo-poo it away. If you think you got the stomach for it, I highly recommend you seek this match out. I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5. It's absolutely one of my favorite matches I've seen in March. 100%. It delivered on what it delivered on its promise, and then spun that into something where you're like, okay, well, these are professional wrestlers doing a death match. These are truly people who love their craft and who understand how a professional wrestling match works, and delivered on that front first and foremost. They delivered the gore. They delivered the violence and the gore first and foremost, and then sort of capped it off with a fantastic piece of business as far as wrestling goes. I enjoyed it tremendously. I thought it was terrific match. You should absolutely check it out. Will there be a better death match this year? Honestly, this was awesome. You should check it out. Then the other match of the business end of the card was Rina Yamashita defeating Suzu Suzuki in a no disqualification table, ladders, and chairs match. Like, this technically was not a death match, I guess, but it had enough death matchy stuff, but it had that death match vibe to it in a couple of spots to make it go. Look, I said earlier it was a death match. Maybe we could revise that a little bit, just a tiny bit, because honestly, it was just a really violent, hardcore brawl between these two women who can absolutely go for it, and they're tremendous. Both of them. Yamashita is, well, she's a legend in that regard, and Suzu Suzuki, who I really like, has a penchant her as well to do these types of matches, and she's very good at them and very credible. And they went out early at each other, and got the toys out very, very early in the match. But they didn't bring them all out at once. You're gonna have to pardon the phrasing here, but they didn't blow the load within the first few minutes. They do bring out a table eventually. Suzu Suzuki power bombs Yamashita off the apron, but she misses the table. She misses the table, and it sort of clips Yamashita in the ass. So what does Yamashita do? What does she do? I don't know if it was planned or not, or if they were supposed to pull out another table or whatever, but Yamashita was like, this table's not going through the rest of this match unscathed. She sets it up at an angle against the apron and DVDs Suzuki right into it, which was tremendous. Then they get those. I still don't know what these are. They're like these little boards with like, and I think someone told me once before what they were, and there will probably be someone in the comments is going to tell me. But these little boards, and then I'll forget again, and we're going to have to, and we'll rerun this down the line. They're these like little metal boards, and I call them circuit boards, but there's no circuits in them. But there's clearly like little pins or whatever that you can implant into your flesh, and they're very popular in Japan deathmatch wrestling. So these get pulled out, and Yamashita and Suzuki both drive them into their own heads, not the other girls' heads, their own heads. And Yamashita immediately, the blood just starts like flowing down her face in a terrific visual, to be completely honest with you. There's a powerbomb onto chairs by Suzu Suzuki. because they get some chair stacks into the ring and whatnot. But Yamashita is back up, kicks her down. So after Yamashita drove Suzuki through the table, she broke the table apart and then threw in the wooden parts into the ring so they could use them later in the match. And they did use them to pelt each other across the head with it. And you're like, okay, fantastic. CTE, here we go. I mean, it's not real wood, it's a composite, right? And you can see it when it finally breaks apart. Like it's not, it's a sturdy composite, but it's not wood. They're not cracking each other's heads with mahogany or pine. It's a great visual. Poison Rana by Suzuki, a scrunchie also by Suzuki on some chairs. Sit out pile driver by Yamashita, who also lands a scrunchie, and she does a couple of razor's edges, like a sit out version of it, and then a full blown one on Suzuki to get the win. I thought this was a lot of fun. Good, brutal, violent. This is why sometimes you look. People when people get really really excited at the nice little polite weapons wild matches that we get in NXT sometimes, and people get really really excited and they're like, oh my god, they're going to places, and I'm like, well, yeah, not really. It's this type of match that I look at and like, that just is my basis as comparison. There's no way you can look at whatever they do in NXT with the women in these hardcore matches, quote unquote, and try to make me believe that this was anything close to what I just saw with these two just completely destroying each other. This was terrific. This was a lot of fun. 4 stars for me. The business end of the show, absolutely tremendous. Why don't we run down the rest of the card? I don't have as many thoughts on the rest of the card as the main events, as the two, well, the main event and the co-main event, I guess, the second from the top. Let's go all the way to the bottom of the card and work our way up. Kaito Ishida defeated Yusaku Ito. This was the opener. Some would say that this was even the pre-show, because they ran this match and then there was a bit of an intermission and then they came back like 15 minutes later with the first match. If you pop in on stream once in a while, I will often make fun of GLEAT, the wrestling promotion, saying that it is not a real wrestling promotion. That's a little meme. It's not necessarily just mine, but it's one that I believe in and I like to propagate. And if you don't believe me when I say that GLEAT is not a real promotion, well, let me tell you, Kaito Ishida is the G-Rex champion in GLEAT, which is essentially their top guy. It's their world title. It's the top title of the company. And so it's your top guy who is wrestling the opener. He's wrestling the pre-show match. He's wrestling the curtain jerker. If GLEAT was indeed a real promotion, they would not be okay with their top guy wrestling a singles match to curtain jerk this show. I wouldn't think. I wouldn't. Put him in a multi-man match, but a singles match and in an opener that kind of felt like a pre-show. Hiromu Takahashi and Takayuki Ueki defeated the Brahman brothers, and this was one of the worst things I've seen in pro wrestling this year so far. God, this sucked. This sucked. I thought this was awful. Now, this was the full-blown comedy match, okay? This is what this was. And, I was advised that the Brahman brothers were, that's what they do. They were, comedy wrestlers, and that this Wiki dude, was also like, he was a gimmick wrestler as well. And then Hiromu's in there for the ha-has, because Hiromu likes doing this kind of goofy shit. And I usually don't have a problem with comedy and pro wrestling. I really don't. I don't have an issue with it. But when there's no wrestling and there's just fucking nonsense happening where they're, if you've seen the match, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But there's so much like physical comedy nonsense that has nothing to do with wrestling. Like the Brahmin brothers have buckets of water that they throw onto the other guys for purposes, for wrestling, right? So the audience all have, they have their fucking, they give the audience, like little raincoats and things to shield themselves, like towels or whatever, to shield themselves from the water and all this bullshit. And I'm like, look, if I want to watch a Gallagher act, I'll go watch Gallagher. But I'm watching pro wrestling. I kind of want to watch guys beat the shit out of each other. And it's, they're sticking shit up, Hiromu's ass, and he's making faces. And then, then they're spreading mayonnaise on a guy's chest, and then there's bread. And then they eat the mayonnaise off the guy's chest, by slathering the bread right on it. It's so fucking stupid. And I was really angry. I was really mad watching this. And I'm like, I'm sure I don't know who enjoys this. I don't know who's, and the crowd is uproarious about it. This is not my cup of tea. This is comedy wrestling going too far for me because the wrestling is not just secondary, tertiary. I would even say it's in fourth place. What is that? Quatricity? Secondary, tertiary, quattrosi? I don't know, but like it's so far down the line that I'm watching something else. I'm watching comedy that 13-year-old Warren Hayes would probably think it's pretty funny. When things are inserted up, grown men's assholes. That, I probably would have found it funny, back in 1987 or something. But with my sophisticated tastes in 2025, as someone who watches pro wrestling and has sophisticated pro wrestling tastes, this was too much. This was too much for me. Seriously, I hated this. I utterly hated this. This is absolutely 100% a terrible match. 1.5 stars out of 5. I gave 2.25 stars to the opener, and I was like, boy, can't get any worse than that. Oh boy. Then we had a Scramble Bunkhouse 3-way tag team death match where the duo of the Yankee 2 Kenju, which is Isami Kodaka and Yuko Miyamoto, they defeated the teams of Takashi Saski and Toru Segura and Abdullah Kobayashi, who was teaming with Tomoaki Hanma. I forgot to mention Hanma earlier when I was writing down the number of people from New Japan who were working this. And I was like, what the fuck is he doing here? It's like, what is Hanma doing, in a match like this? He's gonna get hurt. But brother, this dude bled. Like he bladed for this nonsense nothing match. Something that I did not expect to see and was 100%, as the saying goes, was not on my 2025 bingo card to see Tomoaki Hanma running the razor and bleeding like a pig. It was shocking and cool. And, it's a bit silly at first, the match is, but, this Abdullah guy, Abdullah Kobayashi is, no mobility. He's, clearly I understand why he calls himself Abdullah, because he's absolutely 100% referencing Abdullah the Butcher, and he looks, he's got the same size, he's got the same shape same level of mobility. So, you know, absolutely, like this is one of these deathmatch wrestlers that I'm like, I got no interest in this because this guy can't wrestle. This guy cannot wrestle. This, you know, so, you know, he reverts to the nonsense to do what he has to do to pay the bills, to get booked, whatever the fuck, right? And finally, like towards the end, you know, the Yankee 2 Kenju guys get some moves in and they land a swanton. There was a bat. There was a barbed wire bat that was put in the middle of the ring and, you know, basically was free game for the team. They even had a little thing where whoever reaches the ring first can use the bat first or whatever the fuck. But they did a swanton on the bat onto Segura for the win. And the Yankee 2 Kenju guys, I don't know which one. I don't remember which one it was. But it was that last stretch had something to it. But otherwise, yeah, you know, it's just don't let my attitude give you the impression that because Tomoaki Hanma was bleeding that this was suddenly like fucking, you know, that this was suddenly Okada Omega 2, right? Let's pump the brakes here. 2 3/4 stars. You know, fine. Let's move on. Isuke Saski, Suji Ishikawa, and Violento Jack defeated Daiju Wakamatsu, Hideyoshi Kamitani, and Issei Onitsuka in a fun match. I thought this was a lot of fun. Good match. But, you know, a lot of guys that I know in here and that I enjoy, whose work overall is pretty good. And a good match with a lot of action, a lot of chairs in this because this was a street fight. Good spots, hard hitting, dynamic. Thank God this match happened. You know, because after all the fucking like duds and boring ass matches that we were getting beforehand, and the truly repulsive matches on top of that, or match plural, singular. This one really was a breath of fresh air. 3.5 stars for me. It was a lot of fun. Then we had the Joshi match, which was a bring a weapon, falls count anywhere 6-man tag team match, 6-women tag team match. For the team of Hazuki, Mayu Iwatani, and Captain Stardom. That's right. That's right. One day we can cross our fingers and hope that we will have the team up of the century where Captain Stardom and Captain New Japan will be side by side one day fighting the forces of evil in New Japan Pro Wrestling and Stardom and in pro wrestling in general. It was Saya Iida, by the way, Captain Stardom. They defeated the team of Azumi, Starlight Kid, and Mei Seira. Yeah, like this was really fun. And yeah, everyone brought their weapons. Hazuki brought Kokuma as her weapon. No, like this, and Captain Stardom brought a sword, like was it the Buster Sword? Here we go. Time to really establish the fact that I'm truly I think it was the Buster Sword, right? It looked like the Buster Sword, but I have a doubt because I think that like if you get into the finer details, you're like, no, Warren, it wasn't quite the Buster Sword because of this and that. But it was a big fucking sword that kept her from climbing through the rope. She had to add one of the girls from Stars like hold the top rope so she could just slide in, because the hilt was keeping her from getting into the ring, which was hilarious. And then I think it was Mei Seira who had her own sword, and they had a bit of a sword battle to start things off, and it completely destroyed the Buster Sword, whatever sword she had, and it probably has some kind of anime reference. I mean, maybe it has something to do with Bleach. I've never watched Bleach. Maybe it has something to do with Naruto. Probably more Bleach, right? I would think it'd be Bleach. I think, or it might be another one. There's a lot of anime I don't watch, to be perfectly honest. To I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm this expert. I really am not. I enjoy the anime. I'm very selective. Right now, I've started watching the Chainsaw Man. Is that it? Chainsaw Man? Chainsaw guy? The guy who turns into a chainsaw. He's got a chainsaw for a head and chainsaws for hands. And he fights demons. It's pretty dumb, but I like it. It's actually really dumb, but I like it. I started watching that. I've watched the Attack on Titan. I've watched, what's the other one with the alchemists and the brother in the suit? Full Metal Alchemist. I was like, what's the one with the alchemist? It's in the title war, you dumbass. I don't watch the Sword Art Online. I don't watch the My Hero Academia, which apparently is a big deal that people really like. I don't watch those. I watch the One Piece. Why am I putting the in front of everything? Anyway, the point being is that it probably had some kind of profoundly nerdy significance, but I don't know what it was. So sue me. And this was a lot of fun. This was a very relaxed 6-woman or trios match. How about we'll just call it that? Nice relaxed atmosphere around a trios match for the Stardom ladies, who just delivered a really fun, typical trios match you'd see in Stardom, but they all seemed a lot more relaxed because they were there to have a good time. And honestly, I might have shit on, some of the matches that happened before and whatnot. And the idea for this type of match, regardless, was just for it to be fun. The environment, in a lot of these circumstances, the environment was good for just cutting loose. It was like a house show, where you go to the house show, the cameras aren't rolling, so everyone's a little more relaxed, everyone's having a little more fun, they're trying stuff out, they're goofing off, and that's part of the fun, being there live and watching it. So, but this I thought was really good, the trios match, even within this sort of more relaxed atmosphere, because they were working hard. They were working hard. There was nonsense in it. They did spots with Koguma. She was dressed as a bear. It was fine. It was a fine little match, and I love me the Hazuki. I think she's good. Starlight Kid, Azumi, Mayu, a lot of wrestlers in this match where I'm like, I really like these people. These are great wrestlers. So there you go. I think we went through everything. That's the show. So yeah, I thought it was a fun show. Again, a top match occurred, but you got to have, I think you kind of have to have the stomach for it. If you don't bother. But if you want to give it a try, let's just say, you were like, man, I've never ever watched a death match ever. I'd like to give it a shot just to see, what it's about, give it a shot, whatever the fuck, right? Go with this. Forget watching, Shindy number, 63 out of fucking New Jersey doing, a terrible death match. I don't know if they can allow them in Jersey. Bear with me here. Bear with me with the analogy. Never mind trying to seek out something else. Go with something good. Set your standard high, I would say, and give it a shot. You'll be thoroughly bemused and entertained. How about that? So that's my review of the Crazy Fest. Why don't we review some CMLL? I feel like reviewing some CMLL. I don't do it very often. I want to get into the habit of doing it more often. And we had a big show. We had a big CMLL show just a couple of days ago on last Friday being March 21st. We had essentially it translates into Tribute to Two Legends 2025. But I'm going to try and pronounce it just for the hell of it, for the content, right? It's not as if I'm looking for reasons for my audience to bully me, but might as well just give them what they want, essentially. So the show is called CMLL Homenaje a dos Leyendas. I think that's how you pronounce it. Dos Leyendas. It's the Y that's a little tricky, I believe. 2025. Yeah, like I mentioned, it's the second biggest show of the year, typically speaking, for CMLL. The other one being the anniversary show, which is usually in the fall. And we came into the show with some bold booking because a lot of the people that you would usually think would be at the top of the card were not, or, not in the main event, let's put it that way. Instead, giving a lot of spots to some guys who aren't usually this high up on the card, and most of the time really are not. So, is this CMLL's way of following suit with, seeing what's going on in New Japan, where they're like, yeah, maybe we should try and push our young guys a little more, guys that are, maybe maybe young isn't necessarily the case, because a couple of the guys in the main event aren't exactly young, but, guys that could maybe try to elevate themselves, bring themselves up to another level kind of thing. See how the crowd reacts to them. It was it almost felt like an experiment in some ways, because it wasn't necessarily a flashy card, but I thought this was a very good show. Griffin over at Voices of Wrestling wrote the review for the website, and he winded up his review saying this was a home run, and he's absolutely right. They just knocked it out of the park. There's probably one match that we, if we had one of those, those neuralizers, right, from Men in Black, if we could do that, that'd be tremendous. But other than that, this was a really top-notch show. And it was main evented by a mask versus mask match. Might as well get into that. We'll start with that one because obviously that's the lead here. It ended with Star Jr. losing his mask to Zandekan Jr., who is a wrestler I really like, that I discovered a couple of years ago. Before I really started getting into CMLL, he was partnering with Yota Tsuji in a World Tag League, and it's probably the last few World Tag League matches I watched were those two guys, because someone had said, "Oh, Zandekan in New Japan, that's very interesting," and he was with Yota Tsuji, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, if it's interesting, I'm going to give it a look." And I've been a fan of his. I really enjoy his work. I think he's got incredible charisma. Like, he comes across as a top guy. I think there's still some polishing off, that still needs to be done. I don't think he's ready to go top guy, main event, Arena Mexico every Friday type of deal. Don't get, we're not talking about that, but he's definitely a dude to keep your eyes on if you haven't already. I think he has the makings of something special if he can put it all together, as we like to say. But he defeated Star Jr. to unmask Star Jr. In case you don't know how this match was set up, this was really well built over the past few weeks and a couple of months. Actually, I think they started this really at the start of the year, and might even maybe a little before. They've been building this feud for many weeks moving forward between these four guys: Esfinge, Valiente, Zandekan Jr., and Star Jr. All four of these guys were always in the mix with each other, and were just being dicks and pro wrestling stuff, right? And eventually it all came to a head where all four of these guys challenged each other for their masks to have a mask versus mask match at the tribute show that we had here last Friday. And the way this match went down had Star Jr. and Zandekan Jr. tag teaming against Esfinge and Valiente, again in a tag team. Now, if you're unfamiliar with New Japan, Valiente and Zandekan are typically rudos, while Esfinge and Star Jr. are Technicos, so baby faces. So not necessarily compatible, and they were put in teams with guys that they are really, really at odds with each other. But the idea here is that whoever wins the match, whichever team wins the match, would then move on to have both guys face each other immediately after in a singles match for the mask, right? And, you know, when I saw this first iteration of a match, I found it a little weird. You know, I'm like, well, why do the winners move on to fight for their masks? Wouldn't it be the losers? And then, you know, just someone outright pointed out to me, you know, it's like explained, you know, that in CMLL, there's like, or in Lucha Libre, there is pride there is pride in taking another luchador's mask, and there's a big machismo thing to it as well. It's just a lot more macho. You know, you don't want to be the loser. You know, you want to put your mask on the line, because that, if you win, that makes you an even bigger dog in the yard kind of thing. So I'm like, all right, that's fine. But Esfinge and Valiente, they were at each other's throats. Star Jr. and Zandikan Jr., they were at each other's throats. And if you were to ask me, these two guys truly were the stars of this feud, because they were week after week having these great post-match angles, like being absolutely brutal and vicious with each other. You know, Star Jr., a fine little wrestler, right? A guy that's like, he's pretty good, but never a guy that you'd picture. You'd say to yourself, oh, one of my favorite luchadors, or, you know, oh, what a great guy. But, you know, a nice little wrestler who never really got a big chance. And he was given this big chance to shine here. And I think he grabbed this opportunity by the throat. He was absolutely phenomenal all the way through the match as well, and in the post-match as well. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Week after week, Star Jr. was showing more and more verve and energy than at any other point I had seen him wrestle. And, you know, haven't been watching this CMLL for all that long, but even in conversations that I've been a part of with other folks who have been watching Lucha Libre for much longer than I have, they were even in agreement where they were like, yeah, Star Jr. is absolutely killing it for the first time in his career. He's doing stuff that feels meaningful. Zandikan is, you know, he's a very well-positioned mid-card guy, and they always had. I think they do have big plans for him. I think they really like him, and I think this is absolutely a sign of that. Whereas Esfinge and Valiente, I think a lot of people, they were part, before I get too ahead of myself, they were a part of the anniversary show last fall, which was another four-way match where it ended up, where they were in that with Hechicero and Euphoria ended up losing his mask to Hechicero. So a lot of people figured that it might be one of these two guys here, Esfinge or Valiente, losing his mask. And I think a lot of people were betting on Valiente to lose it. You know, he's an older guy, you know, he's a little more banged up. You're like, okay, well, sometimes removing a mask gives a guy a few more years, tacks on some extra years to a career. But clearly that wasn't the plan. They decided to go with Star Jr. So all that to say, in the match itself, so the match starts off, the first part of the mask versus mask proceedings was the elimination tag team match, where you basically defeat the other tag team so that both guys in the winning tag team can go fight each other. And this, it was good. Don't get me wrong. It was fine. You know, Valiente, I think, you know, from what I understand, he's had better days. He's very good still, but, you know, not exactly the guy he used to be. I think Esfinge is fine. I think he's, you know, the very definition of a perfectly capable, reliable mid wrestler. Like, maybe, around it like a Sean Spears or an Ethan Page. Where it's just like, yeah, no, he'll do what needs to be done. That's fine. He's not going to blow your mind. He has a cool mask. I mean, he's like a sphinx. That's his whole thing. He's like an Egyptian. Esfinge means sphinx. So he has a cool mask. Don't get me wrong. But, it's like, otherwise, he's fine. The two better workers in this match were Star Jr. and Zandikan Jr., and that kind of showed in the opener with the tag team. But then there's an elimination within the tag team, within the tag team part as well. Zandikan Jr. eliminates Esfinge. Then Valiente eliminates Zandikan Jr. and then Star Jr. eliminates Valiente. So after that, we start from there, and then we have the one-on-one. And then this is where the entire build really starts making sense. The entire build to this match, where these guys were just like pummeling each other after their matches, were just going after each other constantly, having some really great post-match beatdown, some great angle development, cutting promos together saying, because in the lead up to this match, saying, well, I don't like you. You're not my friend. I'll work with you, but only because I want to take your mask. It was really, really well done. So immediately, once Valiente hits the bricks, we're right into business. They go right for it, and they fight onto the floor into the crowd. The crowd is so into this, by the way. The crowd is really, really into this. Arena Mexico, of course, was the venue. I forgot to mention that at the top, but they were so completely into this, and they're fighting. They're fighting. They're doing all their cool shit. They're like, at some point, Star Jr. does a cannonball dive to the floor, of course. But he's coming at it with such velocity that, Zandikan catches him, but the momentum, like the sheer velocity of the dive has him being Zandikan stumbling backward, and he can't quite, hold on to him, and Star Jr. just flies into the audience. It was a tremendous spot. There's a superplex into a brainbuster by Zandikan Jr., an avalanche hurricane rana by Star Jr. This would actually be a crucial move for the remainder of the match. He does it. He does his super hurricane rana as a springboard. So basically, Zandikan is standing on the top turnbuckle, and Star Jr. is standing on the ropes next to him, and then he springboards off of them into the Rana, which was absolutely phenomenal. And we're getting some really big near falls off of all of these big moves, like close near falls, crowd cheering, can't believe what's going on. They're on their feet. It's just fantastic stuff. And the Star Jr. seems to be getting the upper hand more and more, but Zandikan keeps kicking out. But then the big error that Star Jr. did is to try for the Super Hurricane Rana again in the exact same setup. So he goes on Zandikan's on the top turnbuckle, he's on the Star Jr.'s on the top rope, and he jumps off, locks his legs around Zandikan, but Zandikan blocks him, which is fantastic, lifts, power bombs him, jumping power bomb off the top rope. Just a fantastic finish. Well, it wasn't quite the finish because Zandikan did a Liger bomb to put him away. And just absolutely phenomenal stuff. And it was attrition. It was anger. It was rage. It was you could feel all the hate that these guys had been. That had been boiling between these two guys throughout, right? It was this entire feud was built on this hatred that they had for each other, and you could feel it in this match. And neither guy wanted to give up because they didn't want to lose to their arch rival to a degree, and it was absolutely fantastic. And And that's when so Zandikan Jr. has the opportunity, gets the mask, I should say. So Zandikan Jr. gets the mask after Star Jr., of course, milks it a little bit. You know, he tries to take off the mask and he goes ringside and asks his girlfriend to, you know, untie the laces behind the mask. He can't quite get it done. Gives her a big kiss, comes back in the ring and milks it. Finally takes it off. And you know, the joke is that most of the time the guys who get unmasked are ugly. They're not the most aesthetically pleasing. But I thought Star Jr. looked completely fine, like a nice little, you know, charming gentleman. You know, I think someone pointed out to me, he was like, oh, he's got a bit of a Rudo face. I'm like, oh, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And maybe that's where we're going with this, because after the match, after removing the mask, you know, Zandikan reaches out to take the mask, and Star Jr. won't let it go. And Zandikan's like, give me the mask, motherfucker, or whatever, you know. And Zandikan just like pops him one in the mouth, and they basically cheap shotting him, and lays a couple of in, and, you know, and then he hits the bricks, which from my understanding is, you know, it's a little, you're a sore loser here, Star Jr. You're not supposed to, like, you know, it's kind of against, you're being a sore loser. You know, a true luchador would stand there and take his moment and, like, you know, and accept it, but he clearly doesn't accept it. He's pissed off. And if they wanted to extend this feud a little more, I wouldn't have an issue with it. If they want to keep going at this for a couple of weeks, I'd be completely fine with that. I'm into it. I like these guys. I like both these guys, and I'm glad Zandikan got it. Again, I think they might have I don't know if they have plans, but they have a vision for this guy. It wasn't a mistake. And I think they see what a lot of us see, they being, you know, the booking committee, whoever the fuck. I think they see what a lot of us see in him. Again, I don't think he's a finished product, but we're not that far off. There's just, you know, he needs some polish in the ring. I think he's a guy who can, who's very generous, who gives a lot, but has troubles taking back, if that makes sense. So sometimes his stuff doesn't look as crisp, I guess. But yeah, no, I'm completely, you know, I thought this was a fantastic way for that. Like, I thought he was the perfect winner for this. I don't see who else could have, of those four guys, I don't know who else could have done it. And by the way, Star Jr., as they do, is revealed to be Isaias Hernandez Lopez. He is 32 years old, from Itzapalpa, which got a pop from the audience. Because, yeah, now his identity is out there. That's what they do. So 32 years old, like I said, you know, Zandikan's the youngest in the bunch, like, right? I'm pretty sure Zandikan is under 30. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to get a luchador's age for apparent reasons. So I can't, you know, I don't have it at the ready right here. But yeah, I think there's a lot of potential here. I think the right man won. As for the match itself, look, I thought the one-on-one section was outstanding. I thought it was excellent. Even it was very fierce. Great stuff, well executed, well timed. These guys played off each other perfectly. I really didn't need the tag team. I really didn't need the tag team portion of it, and I think that brings me down a little bit from the heights maybe that I would otherwise give this match, because I think the opening tag team salvo is a bit of a bummer, and especially how things were built. I didn't feel as invested in Valiente or Esfinge in this. I really feel like the focus was on Zandikan and Star Jr. And so to me, Esfinge and Valiente were kind of like, bit players and all of this. And I was like, no, these are background players. These are the NPCs. Get them out of here. It doesn't matter. The main characters here are Star Jr. and Zendekan Jr. And it was a very roundabout way to get to it. I probably would have just not done the 4-way. Unless they really want to put more people on the show, which is fine. Maybe they were afraid it wouldn't draw, which is fine. But the way they booked it, I don't know how anyone would have thought that. The way they ended up booking it, I don't know how anyone would have thought that, oh yeah, Esfinge Valiente, that's going to be the main event. That would have been a terrible idea. So 4.25 stars for me on for the mask versus mask match, which I would absolutely recommend you checking it out. It was a blast. It was a lot of fun. Let's go back to the bottom of the card. And work our way all the way back up. Los Gemelos Diablos and Akuma defeated Explosivo Fugaz and Star Black in a fine opener. I don't know. There isn't much notes for me on that point. At one point, the Technicos do a triple spot to the floor with a moonsault, well, basically a Norihara, and then two guys diving through the post, which was tremendous. I don't know who was who. I don't know if it was Star Black or Fugaz or Explosivo doing what. But that was truly a great spot. A good opener to get the crowd riled up. It was very good. 3 stars for me. Solid opener. Then we had the CMLL World Women's Tag Team Title match. The finals of the tournament, the worldwide tournament that they had, where La Jarochita and Lluvia, I should say, defeated Lady Frost and Taya Valkyrie. Before we get into the match, I was listening to Cubs Fan last week, and he made me realize this, and I couldn't believe it myself when I went to Cage Match just to see it with my own eyes. Not because I don't trust Cubs Fan. I was like, why would he make this up? I just wanted to see it with my own eyes. But the CMLL World Women's Tag Team Championship, folks, has never changed hands. You heard me. It has never changed hands in a wrestling match. Ever since the creation of the title championship in 2023, it has been the only reason there has been different title holders is because the title holders vacated the belts. You know, the original winners were Stephanie Vaquer and Zeuxis. Stephanie Vaquer, ended up having plans elsewhere, so they vacated the title. And then it was Juvia and Tessa Blanchard who picked up the titles after that vacancy. Tessa Blanchard, she had plans elsewhere as well, so she hit the bricks, vacating the titles, and now La Jarochita and Juvia are the champions. This match stunk. This was not a good match. Look, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but listen, the worst person in this match wasn't even Taya Valkyrie. That should tell you, like, what we were, okay. La Jarochita did her best. Jarochita? I think I'm not pronouncing the J right. It's La Jarochita. I think she did her best with what she had here. I think Taya looked motivated, but Lady Frost, man, she was just blowing spots and missing her cues. It's just a complete disaster, but not as much of a disaster as Juvia, who I do not understand why CMLL wants to push this person. She stinks. She absolutely, legitimately stinks. And it is a fascinating to me that they have her in these positions and in title situations when you legitimately have others on this in that division who are leaps and bounds better than her. The match was disjointed. It was slow, clunky, no smoothness at all to it. It was just terrible. And I'm like, these are the AEW representatives. This is kind of embarrassing for AEW. Because they were saying that you could hear commentary saying, AEW, All Elite Wrestling, representidad, whatever, however it said, something to that effect. If I'm basing myself off my French, maybe that's what it is. And I'm like, this is so embarrassing. Like, this is legitimately embarrassing. But thankfully, later on, we have other AEW representatives who do a far superior job. We'll get to that. Titan defeated Templario in a lightning match. This rocked. This was a lot of fun. These are two guys that I really, really like. These are two of my favorite luchadors. I think, Titan I'm very familiar with thanks to his association with LIJ over in New Japan. So, I've seen him work quite a bit. I've always had a bit of ever since I started CMLL, I've always had a little affinity for Templario. I think he's been improving tremendously. He's not improving, but elevating his game. He's been elevating his game quite a bit. And I think he's on his way to truly being a top guy for the company. Look, this match ruled. This match, and it was a lightning match, which means that it has the hard 10-minute time limit, which means that they have to pack a lot of cool shit in, and that's exactly what they did. They packed a lot of cool shit into this match. Avalanche Gourdbuster by Titan and a Saski by Templario, excuse me, and a Saski special on the ramp right into the ring, which is always a move I like. Coup de grace by Titan, and we're heading into the 1 minute warning. And then Titan locks him into La Inmortal, which is his finishing submission move. And with something like 10 seconds left, Templario taps, which is heartbreaking. But I'd be okay with them running this one more time. And it kind of felt like they want to do it again. They were being all macho with each other after, which is always a good sign that they want to do some more wrestlings. The thing here, from what I understood, they wanted to do a little more their unit affiliations in New Japan. They wanted to have guys come in from New Japan to sort of help build the feud or be there at ringside, but clearly it didn't quite come together, right? Because talked about LIJ, but Templario's in United Empire. So maybe they'll do that as the feud progresses. Because I found it kind of weird that they just did a lightning match with these two guys, because these are two guys who could have gone out there and stole the show. Maybe that's why they kept them to 10 minutes as well. And if they want to keep building off of this, well, that's fine. It's just weird that you wouldn't want to give the best possible match you could on the second biggest show of the year for your company. But, I don't do the booking. I don't run a company that's been around for, almost a century. So, what do I know? Then we had the CMLL World Tag Team title match where Los Hermanos Chavez, which is Angel de Oro and Niebla Roja, they retained their titles against Rocky Romero and Volador Jr. This was really good. This was fantastic. A terrific match. A really, really terrific match. Really hard hitting with four great workers. You can express it in other ways with much more with many more words. But ultimately, you had just four great workers doing great things with each other, and it was tremendous. I usually hate Towers of Doom. I hate Thankfully, we've seen everyone stop doing them, I feel, or they're not quite as common as they used to. But they did a Tower of Doom on the floor, and I thought that kind of ruled. I haven't seen many of those. That was kind of cool. Within the match, there's some miscommunication between the Chavez brothers that leads to them shoving each other and just being pissed off, and that leads to Niebla Roja being eliminated from the first part of the match because they get counted out. Both teams end up being counted out, and there's a lot of protesting that happens because of it. Both teams are arguing with the referee. The audience absolutely dislikes the finish. Everyone is pissed off. So, the officials are there. The CMLL officials are there, and they walk to the ring with the titles, and everyone's sort of like forlorn. And then this whole thing lasts quite a while. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't very short. It lasts quite a bit, but everyone's pleading the case for, to continue the match or at least restart the match. And the officials go, they finally thumbs up, and it's like, okay, let's do it. We're going to restart the match. Audience cheers. Everyone's into it. And then Rocky and Volador early on get the upper hand, but Niebla Roja turns the tides. He gets Rocky out of a submission, throws him on to Volador, and then the Chavez brothers get the win via submissions shortly thereafter and retain World Tag Team titles. So, look, this was tremendous. This was so much fun. Another great match. A fantastic showing from the dudes here. I probably could have done without the pause and restart. It's a personal preference for me. I know it gets the crowd fired up. Don't get me wrong. It's fine. I understand what it's supposed to do, but I'm kind of like, we really didn't need this because we really didn't. I thought the match was completely competent and great. More than competent. I thought it was really good. Outside of it, 4 stars for me. To wrap up that match, it leads us to Mascara Dorada and Místico, 2/3 of Sky Team, taking on the Titans of the Air, Los Titan de, I don't know. I don't remember their tag name in Spanish, but I remember it translates to the Titans of the Air. Commander and Hologram representing AEW. Now, this was not embarrassing by any stretch of the imagination. And the cool thing here that we have to address is that Commander and Hologram, both former AAA wrestlers, right? As it's pretty well documented. Well, I don't know how well documented it is for Hologram. Hologram is the former Adamis who used to wrestle in AAA. And then decided to leave the company, was like, I'm going to go find something else to do, and was told by an official, a AAA official on the way out, you will not have a better career anywhere else than you will have here. Whoopsie. So without relitigating all of the history between CMLL and AAA, the essential base is that CMLL and AAA hate each other like viscerally, and guys who wrestle for the other company usually can't show up on. Guys who wrestle for the other company usually don't show up on the company, in that promotion, so on and so forth. But it kind of feels. So I'm sure that it was special for Commander and Hologram to get back to wrestling in Mexico and doing it in front of Arena Mexico. I'm sure there was a lot of satisfaction in that for multiple reasons. For the fact that they were, one of them was told that he'd never have a career outside of AAA. For, just wrestling in one of the halls of international professional wrestling, not just Mexico, but like across the world. There's certainly a lot of satisfaction, and it's crazy. Just like Taya as well, right? Taya is a wrestler that is clearly associated, or maybe not clearly, but was for a long time associated with AAA. So for her to be on a CMLL show, all going through AEW, I think this goes to show how much this relationship that CMLL has with AEW is good. I think it's a strong relationship that exists if they are going to be confident enough in AEW and Tony Khan ultimately, and to allow former AAA people on their show when they're usually extremely protective of that. So there's a lot of really interesting politics in this. A lot of things that I think are worth pointing out. I don't know if they're true. I don't know if it is. I don't know, like for real, for sure, if it is a sign that the relationship is very strong. But I have to take it as a sign that the relationship is very strong. I don't know how else. I don't know how else you could see it within that context. And these two dudes came in representing their AEW, and boy, they were ready to go, and they were flawless. They were fantastic. You know, the match starts off with Hologram and Mascara Dorada doing some incredible athletic exchanges to really set the tone. And both guys they're on point. They're not flubbing through things. They're being crisp. Like it's really, really motivating. You're like, oh, okay, this fucking rules, right? And Commander throughout the match is just fantastic. He's doing his rope walk dives and the crowd is losing their shit. You know, there's at some point, this crowd doesn't even know who to cheer for anymore. They've got Místico, okay? Like the god of Arena Mexico. And they're not even like outright cheering for Místico. The crowd is absolutely split on them because the action is great and everyone's looking great. Dorada is giving I'm watching this and I'm like, he's giving off main event vibes right now. Like he is absolutely on top of his game. Like as good as this kid is, like in this match specifically, there was something going on where I'm like, okay, I haven't seen him be this present. I don't know, like, so I don't know how to put it. It you know, it's a vibe thing where he just commanded the ring and felt larger than life with his offense all looking spectacular and spot on. It was such a fantastic match. Except for Místico. There's something that happened in this match that completely threw him off his game. And I don't know when it happened or how it happened, but it happened early on. Because I'm looking at him and I'm like, wait, he's not as smooth. What's going on? Oh, you know, you do a couple of things, you're warming up, you're like, okay. But then I see him try to do like his crowd participation things, you know, what he usually does to get the crowd involved. And he's kind of, there's something off. He's not feeling like himself. He's not looking like himself. What the hell's going on with Místico? And he flubs a spot at some point, a springboard, and like, no, something's wrong. Like something is wrong, and he's lying on his back after spots. He's there. I'm like, no, something happened. Like, you know, did he get his bell rung? You know, and then worked with a slight concussion for the rest of the match. Which, if so, Místico, you're an idiot. Don't do that. He truly was off. A guy who is never off. He didn't have that precision he usually has, that smoothness that he has where he does, ranas or hit scissors, and he does the thing where he lands on one foot and then the other foot follows it. Yes, like it kept me from going really, really hard on this match because I think this had everything for like with how the match went down. If Místico had been healthy, on top of his game, however you want to define it, I think this would have been my match of the night. I think it was absolutely on rails to be a match of the night for me. Not quite, but still a terrific match. because it was carried by the 3 other guys who were like, sure, don't worry, we got the work down, right? Oh, and the finish happened when Dorada and Hologram pinned both of each other at the same time to eliminate each other, I guess, kind of to protect Hologram's undefeated streak, I guess. It's kind of weird. And then after that, Místico lands the La Mística on Commander for the win. Look, it's a 4 1/4 star match, even with Místico, looking not great. It was still tremendous, and I honestly, if he had been okay, I'd be raving. I'd be ranting and raving about how great this match was, even more. But it was still a great match. I absolutely loved it. 4 1/4 star match. But there you go. Because then after we had the main event, but we already talked about that. So yeah, CMLL, a tribute to 2 legends. It's a good show. It's a good show. Skip the women's tag match. Absolutely skip that. Everything else is a blast and a great progression. A home run of a wrestling show. You should. And short. It's like just above 2 hours. And if you chunk out the women's match, I think it'll be under 2 hours. It'll be like I don't know, whatever. I don't know. It won't be. It's a nice little card you can digest very easily. Do yourselves a favor and give it a watch. It was tremendous. And that about wraps it up for another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Thank you very much for listening, tuning in, joining, subscribing, liking, loving, rating, reviewing, etc. I will be back on Thursday for another edition of the AEW Dynamite review. So we'll be back in the saddle on that front. Otherwise, I will be back for a live stream. I live stream a lot on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. So typically on Thursdays, we stream. So will probably be a stream on Thursday night if you want to come check us out or subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss a single thing. That's another great, just all nice little ways to show some support and consume more of the stuff that I have to give, because I have so much to give, so very much. But listen, if you can't make it, that's fine. I'll be back soon. Thank you everyone for listening. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me. And I'll see you next time.